You know that feeling, right? We all have these big ambitions, these grand plans for our lives. But how often do they just sort of fizzle out? If you've ever had a goal that you were really excited about, but it just never happened, you're definitely not alone. So let's talk about the simple reason why that happens and a really powerful framework that can change everything.
So, what's the deal? Why do our best intentions so often just fail? Well, it's usually not because we're not trying hard enough or because we don't want it enough. The real problem, most of the time, is in how the goal is built. We know what we want, but we're totally missing a clear plan for how we're going to get there.
And this quote right here, it just hits the nail on the head. A goal without a plan is just a wish. A wish is passive. It's something you kind of hope for. But a goal is active. It's something you work for. And the bridge that gets you from wishing to doing, it's a solid plan. And today, that's what we're going to build.
All right, so let's start by digging into that really crucial difference between a passive wish and an active goal. Because honestly, once you really get this distinction, you've already taken the first real step toward making things happen.
Think about it. On one side, you've got this vague desire, like, man, I wish I could make more money. It's a nice thought for sure, but it has zero direction. On the other side, you have an actual achievable plan. To get from that wish to a real plan, you need a framework to give it some structure, some way to actually track it.
And that framework is called the S.M.A.R.T goal system. It's a super simple acronym that basically acts as a powerful checklist. It helps you turn that fuzzy wish into a concrete target. It stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So let's break down what each of those really means.
Okay, so let's start with the first two, which are honestly the foundation for everything else. S for specific and M for measurable. This is where we get totally crystal clear on what we're actually doing and how we're going to know for making progress.
So the first step is to go from fuzzy to focused. I want to have a better body. We've all said that, right? But what does that actually mean? A specific goal sounds like this. I will go to the gym every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3 p.m. for 45 minutes. See the difference? One is a vague hope. The other is a clear, actionable plan.
Now, once your goal is specific, you have to make sure it's measurable. And tracking your progress isn't just about numbers or spreadsheets, it's about psychology. Seeing how far you've come is one of the most powerful motivators there is. It's what keeps you going.
So for example, I want to lose weight. That's not really measurable. How do you know when you've won? But I want to lose 10 pounds. Boom, now you have a clear finish line. It's something concrete you can actually aim for.
And here's where the real power comes in. You break that big, measurable goal into smaller pieces. Instead of focusing on 10 pounds, just aim to lose 3 pounds first. And when you hit it, you have to celebrate that win. Then you aim for the next 3. This whole process builds momentum and makes that big goal feel way less scary.
So, now you've got a specific, measurable goal. But is it the right goal for you? Well, that's where the next 2 letters come in. Your goal has to be attainable, so realistic enough to actually achieve, and relevant, meaningful enough to be worth all your effort.
You know, it's so easy to fall into the trap of setting some impossible goal. Aiming to make $1 million this month when you're just scraping by, that's just setting yourself up for failure. It might feel super motivating for like a day, but that feeling is going to turn into burnout really, really fast.
What if instead you started with something you can actually attain? A much better goal is to try and make an extra $100 this month. Once you do that, you've got to win. Then maybe you can aim for $200 next month. It's these small, consistent wins that build real long-term success.
Next up is R for relevant. And honestly, this one is all about your why. An attainable goal is pretty meaningless if it doesn't line up with the bigger picture for your life. It's way too easy to get caught up chasing things that sound good, but don't actually move you in the direction you really want to go.
I mean, here's a perfect example. Somebody set a goal to learn French just because they thought it sounded nice. But it had nothing to do with their life, their career, their travel plans, nothing. It just took up a bunch of time without any real benefit, and eventually they just dropped it. That is a textbook irrelevant goal.
So before you pour all your time and energy into any goal, you have to ask yourself this really simple but super powerful question. Why do I want to achieve this? Does it actually align with my values and where I see my life going? If the answer is no, it might not be the right goal for you, at least not right now.
And that brings us to our final letter, T, for time-bound. And also a really crucial piece that a lot of people miss. A goal needs a deadline to give it some urgency, but it also needs to be flexible enough to adapt to, real life.
Just think about the school essay effect. Come on, we've all been there, right? You get a whole month to write an essay, and almost all of the work happens in the last 2 days. Why? Because that deadline creates this powerful sense of urgency. Without a deadline, a goal is just something you'll get to someday.
Okay, but here's one last idea that is so important. You don't just set your SMART goals and then poof, you're done. Life changes, right? Your priorities shift and your goals have to be able to adapt right along with you.
The key is to think of goal setting not as a straight line to a finish, but as a continuous cycle. You set the goal, you take action, but then you have to evaluate your progress. Is this working? Does this goal still even feel relevant? You have to be flexible enough to revise your plan as you go along.
So now the question is for you. With this whole framework in mind, what is one wish, one single wish, that you can turn into a real, actionable SMART goal starting today? What are you going to start working towards?